Its father spread pandemonium throughout the Midwest. Its arrival will thrill a nation. Its legacy is destined
to scam a multi-billion-dollar company out of $20.5 million. Upon announcement, Son of Beast seemed like it was destined for success. But destiny is never set in stone. What seemed to be the world's baddest wooden coaster turned out to be structurally dubious, legally ambiguous, and ended up hospitalizing guests. Welcome to the story of the biggest scam in roller coaster history. This is the story of Son of Beast. Enjoy your ride.
Paramount's Kings Island is going to unleash on the world something that we can call the sequel to The Beast.
Son of Beast says Kings Island put riders at risk. In a video deposition, Rick Schmizzy dissected photos of the wooden coaster and structural weak points right down to the loose bolts.
I could have spun it with my finger.
Yannick was among the 27 people hurt while riding the Son of Beast in July of 2006. The two sides settled for an undisclosed amount as jury selection was beginning.
See right here? That's where the wheels would have ridden on it.
Now that piece of track sits twisted among piles of splintered wood.
Crews at Kings Island started demolishing the Son of Beast.
Son of Beast.
Son of Beast.
The Son of Beast.
Something that we can call the sequel to The Beast. This is the Son of Beast.
Kings Island in Mason, Ohio is one of the world's greatest amusement parks. For us to understand how Kings Island fell into this trap, we can take a time machine all the way back to 1972. 1972 was a time to be alive. The Godfather released in theaters, over 70 countries, including the Soviet Union, agreed to ban biological warfare, a little something called Watergate happened, and Kings Island opened. On April 29th, 1972, Kings Island opened to the public for the first time, with its first owner, the Taft Broadcasting Company. I mention this, as Kings Island has swapped ownership a couple of times, which will be vastly important later. Staying in 1972 though, Kings Island opened with the intent of being a bigger Coney Island. And no, not that Coney Island. Nearby, there was a park, probably not coincidentally named Coney Island, that was prone to flooding and had already expanded all of their land. The son of the owner, Gary Walk, struck a deal with the Taft Broadcasting Company to buy Coney Island off of it, while also buying 1,600 acres of land outside of Cincinnati. This is where Kings Island was born. When Kings Island first opened, it had a huge media presence inside of the park, as it had access to all of the Taft-owned properties, like all of the Hanna-Barbera characters. This is all to say, Kings Island did immeasurably well. The park opened with 3 coasters, 2 of which were wooden. Scooby-Doo, a John C. Allen creation, and the legendary Racer. Racer was said to be the most popular ride at the park, and for good reason. Racer had a fun layout, and the dueling aspect makes the ride so much more engaging and competitive. But Kings Island wasn't done expanding, and they definitely weren't done with Woodies. Enter the Beast. The Beast is probably one of the most well-known coasters in Ohio still operating today. Kings Island wanted to pull something huge off, and in 1979 they did, by opening the world's tallest, fastest, and longest wooden roller coaster at the time. Most companies hire outside firms to build their rides, from companies like B&M, RMC, and Intamin, but none of these companies were even near being existed back then. PTC, or Philadelphia Toboggan Company, had already built Racer a few years prior, so Kings Island just decided to build them themselves. If you want something done right, you do it yourself, and that's exactly what Kings Island did. This turned out to be a great decision in the long run, as the ride became a smash hit and it's still operating today. The ride uses its terrific location in the woods and its hilly terrain, making it a crowd pleaser, and it was one of the most thrilling rides at the time. Something about darting in and out of the woods is such a mysterious and intriguing concept to this day. The Beast was and still is this park's claim to fame. Taft's theme park presence would gradually increase. Taft would build up the brand new theme park Kings Dominion and acquire Carowinds in the Carolinas. These parks would also be wildly successful, leading them to build Canada's Wonderland in Vaughan, Ontario, Canada. These would bring about bigger, badder, and bolder rides that would honestly throw the Beast into more competition, as these newfangled modern steel coasters honestly outdid Beast in so many ways. In this time, Kings Island, Kings Dominion, Carowinds, and Canada's Wonderland, ownership swapped hands for the first time, from Taft to the Kings Entertainment Group, which was just owned by Taft and one of the companies to manage the parks. In this time, they acquired their 5th amusement park, California's Great America, previously owned by Marriott. This would be followed by a swift move to revamp all 5 parks, by adding a coaster to each and every one. This was a move that continually divulged Beast into more and more obscurity, as parks like Kings Dominion received Anaconda and Aero Looper, Carowinds and CGA with 2 early B&M stand-ups, and Canada's Wonderland getting an Aero suspended coaster, all 3 of those named Vortex. Got real creative with that one. Kings Island got comparative table scraps, being the old original park, getting Adventure Express to the Aero Mine Train. Kings Island seemingly had enough, as the owners wanted to end their contract with the Kings Entertainment Group. Luckily, everyone else did too. Kings Entertainment was bought by none other than Paramount. In a $400 million buyout of the parks, plus some TV stations, it brought about a new era of the parks, and Paramount was about to get scammed. The year is 1999. Phantom Menace is released in theaters, Y2K grips the nation, a different political scandal happens, and Kings Island makes the biggest mistake in their park's history. At this point, Paramount's Kings Island, the official name of the park after the buyout, was doing the best it's ever been. 1999 was quite possibly the best year for American roller coasters. Six Flags still had what seemed to be like an unlimited budget, Paramount was still going all out in all of their parks, and the coaster wars were at their peak. For the uninitiated, the coaster wars are a period from 1989 to 2006 of parks trying to one-up each other, leading to some of the greatest rides ever built. What all started with Magnum XL 200 ended up causing the creation of rides like Millennium Force, Kingda Ka, Superman Escape from Krypton, and many more. That's all to say, parks were building big, bold, record-breaking new rides. But more importantly, this brought about subcategories of the wars, specifically wooden coaster wars. And Kings Island wanted another stake in the history of wooden coaster records, for better or for worse.
Historic announcement that Paramount's Kings Island is going to unleash on the world something that we can call the sequel to The Beast. This is the Son of Beast. The Son of Beast will be the biggest, baddest wooden roller coaster in the world when it opens next year.
Okay, let's unveil the model of the coaster, and I'll tell you about some of its world-class features.
Uh-oh, here we go. Oh, man.
Oh, my God.
Thank you.
Wow. Woo!
Remarkable.
Son of Beast was the biggest failure this park has ever faced. Announced on May 11th, 1999, Son of Beast took after his father. It would set 3 or 7 world records depending on how you look at it. Son of Beast would be the tallest at 218 feet, the world's first hyper wooden coaster, the fastest at 78 miles per hour, and the big draw is the first inverting wooden coaster in the world, with a vertical loop smack dab in the middle of the ride. The other 4 are kinda weird records. Paramount's Kings Island would now hold the record for the largest wooden roller coaster structure, and the park with the most wooden coaster track in the world. Somebody in marketing definitely got very creative. They would also not set, but tie the records for most wooden coasters in a park, and most coasters in general in a park. That goes to show they were pulling out all of the stops for this ride. Ohio, the hotbed of coaster activity, was looking prosperous. Until Kings Island was scammed. Enter the con artist, aka RCCA. The Roller Coaster Corporation of America, or RCCA, is the worst manufacturer of any coaster ever. RCCA built 6 rides to my knowledge. some still operating as rough pieces of garbage, and even one getting a Rocky Mountain construction treatment, and one getting torn down. RCCA was essentially a scam operation. Let me explain. RCCA would build awful layouts, awful designs, and most of all, god-awful build quality. The company's first coaster was the Rattler, the aforementioned RMC I was talking about, at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. This ride was incredibly rushed, leading to what looks like to be a very, very rough ride to say the least. This ride would have some of the worst transitions and tracking of any coaster out there. Fiesta Texas would constantly have to remodel parts of the ride every single year themselves. Now, between Rattler and Son of Beast, their last creation, came 4 more rides, each looking dreadful for any riders. But if RCCA has been making clearly dreadful, awful rides, why in the world would Kings Island ever want to work with them? Well, probably they didn't. I imagine they approached a few manufacturers to conjure up a layout that met all of their record-breaking requirements first, but RCCA didn't play by their rules. RCCA would basically use an illegal trick. What I mean is, RCCA would completely undercut and underbid on rides by telling parks it would cost much less than it actually would. This is RCCA's siren song. This meant Paramount's Kings Island would be much more likely to choose RCCA over other trusted manufacturers. The underbidding in turn would cause RCCA to cut corner after corner, since this would mean that they had to spend less on construction to actually earn a profit. Apparently, RCCA was in talks with Kings Island recorded back all the way to 1997 to build Son of Beast, leading them to choose RCCA. Kings Island just went through the biggest scam in roller coaster history. Son of Beast was originally rumored to cost $10 million initially, which is fairly cheap considering the magnitude of a hyper wooden coaster. Whatever sum of money they got, they had just sacked out $10 million from Paramount. The deal had gone through, and there was no turning back now. RCCA had a big task on their hands, to build the world's biggest wooden coaster on a very, very tight budget, and keep up the facade of knowing what they were doing. They unfortunately only partially knew what they were doing when building the ride, but completely understood how to keep from losing money. RCCA started to lay the groundwork on the ride, as well as lay down the groundwork for a way to avoid all lawsuits from Kings Island or any potential riders. How? Well, they used something called a shell corporation. A shell corporation is a company created usually for nefarious things. Shell corporations can do anything a regular company can do, and RCCA set up a shell company called the Roller Coaster Corporation of Ohio, or RCCO for short, which was completely RCCA operating under the legal radar. And if anyone wanted to sue RCCO, they would completely shut it down to have nobody come after in some cases, which is extraordinarily shady. RCCO was credited for the entire construction of Son of Beast, other than a few other manufacturers that they hired to help out, including the famed Stengel Engineering. Stengel Engineering was founded by none other than Werner Stengel, the famed wooden roller coaster designer that has created many great rides and techniques. Stengel Engineering does a host of services, and I guarantee you that Stengel didn't work too much on the ride, as none of this looks like any of his work, nor up to the quality of his work. The company is known for computing stress and structural analysis over time, but if that had been done, this ride would still be around. So no, they didn't get a world-renowned designer on their side here. What they did get was a Georgia-based wooden structural company called Wooden Structures out of Georgia. Wooden Structures would calculate the stress analysis as well as design the wooden structure. Wooden Structures most likely offered RCCA a cheaper deal on these services, so RCCA could overturn a larger profit margin. All of these would create a breeding ground for issues. Son of Beast was plagued with issues far, far before its opening. Construction began in 1999 with a spring 2000 anticipated opening. RCCA had some work to do. The entire ride area took up 12 acres of land. They cleared trees, poured concrete footers, and began to construct the world's largest wooden roller coaster structure. Over 2.5 million board feet of southern pine and Douglas fir, or 5,900 cubic meters of wood, over 2.5 million feet of southern pine and Douglas fir, and over 25,000 steel bolts went into this ride's construction. Crews worked tirelessly, stretching all throughout the winter. This is where problems started to get apparent. 8 months go by of construction, and a windstorm hits Kings Island. This caused some of the wooden supports to collapse. This was the first sign of something being off. From the outside, construction looked like it was going smoothly. But the outside perspective isn't always the full story, and RCCA shortcuts were about to catch up to them. What they were constructing was so bad, RCCA was completely fired from the project. RCCA had in some capacity won the battle. They had walked away with the money that they had made from building the ride and never looked back, with the payout of $10.5 million. The firing of RCCA was a big deal. RCCA was finally out of Kings Island's hair, but with that brought a brand new challenge. How would they finish building the ride? Kings Island now had a huge dilemma. They could hire a completely new company to take over the project, but that would have most likely driven up the cost significantly. But if you want something done right, you do it yourself. Paramount's Kings Island would finish the remainder of the world's largest wooden coaster ever on their own. Like father, like son, both rides would end up being built by Kings Island themselves. Construction would continue without RCCA. It was definitely going more swimmingly than the RCCA era, and the opening date would stay the same. For a while. Son of Beast would ultimately run behind schedule, as the park blamed heavy rains for setting back the date. But ultimately, Son of Beast would open fully completed, 2 weeks late on April 28th, 2000. The ride took place in Outpost 5, a containment facility for the Son of Beast, as researchers had captured this legendary monster. You, the rider, would board a perimeter surveillance vehicle, aka the coaster, to go and find the Son of Beast. The ride, though, would be nothing as fancy as the theming. The ride starts with a left-hand bank turn into a Lightning Racer-like turnaround onto the lift hill. This prepares us for what is about to ensue. We then climb the big draw of this ride, the 218-foot lift hill. After that, all hell breaks loose. A 78-mile-per-hour drop, 218 feet down. A teardrop loop still maintaining wooden track, the first inversion ever on a wooden coaster. 4 separate helixes. 3 drops over 100 feet. This was amazing for Kings Island, as having a world record generates major publicity, and in turn, revenue. But soon after, Son of Beast would gain a reputation. In a bad way. The year is 2000. Disney's 39th film, Dinosaurs, bombing in theaters. Everybody celebrates the turn of the millennia. Gore vs. Bush recount is overturned. And Son of Beast has been open for 1 day. And it's already closed. Sometimes, new rides close after a few days as they're still working out the kinks. But usually, they open up the day or so after. Son of Beast was closed for 3 entire weeks. This was confirmed to be an area of the ride that was swaying too much than intended. Swaying is usually intentional due to forces that the ride exerts on the track, almost like a shock-absorbing method. In its downtime, the park would reinforce this turn to prevent the large sways. The park reported that they closed to change this for comfort over safety, but the public damage had been done. The rumor mill had started about the ride's problems, and unfortunately, a lot of them were true. Son of Beast reopened, but would sporadically operate from now on for the rest of its life. After the repair, the ride finally truly opened. Outside of the enthusiast bubble, reviews for the ride were mixed. Some loved the experience of being jostled around and flung into gigantic elements, but some weren't a fan of its overwhelming roughness. Mostly enthusiasts, but we complain about everything, so take that with a grain of salt. And now, for more issues. In 2 separate incidents, there were reports of riders snapping their necks, having the rider next to them support their head throughout the entire ride experience, most likely due to their confirmed pre-existing conditions combined with overwhelming roughness. The general public seemed indifferent to all of the incidents and could care less after over 7 inspections by the Ohio Department of Agriculture. Small and smaller incidents would happen, leading to more and more inspections, and Kings Island just about had enough. The ride was experiencing issues that supposedly cost millions and millions to fix. Every off-season, extensive repairs would besiege Son of Beast to fix all of these issues that RCCA had so negligently given this ride. And Kings Island couldn't take it anymore. Kings Island wanted to sue. And they were turning the scope of the legal gun right back at who they thought was out of the picture. RCCA would be on the receiving end of Kings Island's fury. RCCA, or technically RCCO for designing the ride, and Wooden Structures for providing the wood. RCCA, though, was ready to fight. RCCA claimed the victim here. RCCA said that they were not to blame, as Kings Island completed the ride on their own, using Kings Island's employees instead of what RCCA said to be their more experienced builders, so Kings Island could save money. RCCA was essentially saying Kings Island fired RCCA to save money, while in reality they were just doing a horrible job. RCCA pleaded that they had tried to tell Kings Island that it was a terrible idea to finish it on their own. RCCA was on its knees, pleading to the court of innocence. RCCA had won the battle of building the ride, but Kings Island won the battle of the lawsuit. Kings Island successfully had sued for a whopping $20 million. Kings Island had done it. They had supposedly gotten all of their money back and then some. The biggest scam in roller coaster history has technically been reversed, and RCCA had been slain. The lawsuit would end RCCA forever, as presumably they couldn't feasibly pay $20.5 million, striking the final blow right into the heart of RCCA. And just in time too, Kings Island would swap hands to the current owners of the park. On June 30th, 2006, Cedar Fair would complete the purchase of every Paramount park. Canada's Wonderland, CGA, Carowinds, Kings Dominion, and most importantly, Kings Island. And Son of Beast's days were numbered. 1 week after the acquisition, something Kings Island nor RCCA expected or wanted had occurred. On July 9th, 2006, one of the trains was passing over the first of the two helixes, an area of the ride taken at extremely high speeds, as it's right after the 218-foot drop. 3 of the wooden ledgers supporting Bent 290 snapped. A bent, for context, is a rigid wooden frame commonly used in coasters. The snapping of the track caused it to sag 5 inches unnoticed. Train 1 continued to the end of the ride unscathed. The same could not be said about the second train. The sag on the track was still there from the first train. The second train traversed the lift hill and went down the drop. Train 2, holding 27 guests, passed over Bent 290 and catastrophically pushed down the sag even further. Imagine biking and then hitting a 5-inch curb at 78 miles an hour. This essentially is what happened on July 9th. Everyone in Train 2 experienced a heavy jolt at over 50 miles an hour, causing multiple severe upper body injuries as the train continued to the ride to its end. As the second train hit the final brake run, one of the ride operators noticed the riders in visible pain. They screamed to the ride operator on the tower to stop the ride, preventing what most likely would have been one of the worst amusement park accidents ever. A third train stopped on the lift hill, safe from all harm. All 27 guests who rode in the second train were immediately transported to the hospital. Luckily, all of them were released without any long-term injuries. Most amusement park accidents are due to ride operator negligence. We see it time and time again, from early days of coasters to even this year. But this incident proves how useful ride operators can be in preventing tragedy, especially on these rides that were designed without the full intent of safety. This ride operator is a hero, and possibly prevented the severe injury or even death of many, many people. This would promptly close the ride for the foreseeable future. Something needed to change, big time, and it turns out they would remove the smoothest, most eye-catching part of the ride. The investigation started immediately after the incident by the Ohio Department of Agriculture and Kings Island. The investigation took weeks, and it was determined that the wood used in the ride was of significant quality, and had been the cause of the incident. Another thing confirmed was Kings Island's previous mends and builds to RCCA's construction had gotten rid of many of the design flaws. However, RCCA wasn't to blame for this incident. It turned out to be Kings Island's fault. What had happened was, in the means supposed to eliminate flaws from RCCA, created Kings Island's biggest flaw. Kings Island had made the sections of the ride much stiffer than anticipated. This in turn created leagues more stress, including the section on Bent 290. The snapping had been caused by excessive lateral forces caused on the wood, creating so much less stress, ultimately leading to the snapping. The most surprising part, though, Son of Beast had more than 50 other sections with the same design flaw, meaning this could have happened in over 50 other sections of the ride. The Ohio Department of Agriculture set very strict guidelines for the ride to reopen. They were to fix all 50 areas, take all efforts to reinforce the wood, and stiffen parts of the ride that actually needed to be stiffened. Kings Island did exactly just that, and then some. One of the main complaints the Son of Beast got was how uncomfortable the trains were. Luckily, those weren't made by RCCA, but they were made by Premier Rides. One way that Kings Island was preventing stress was by reducing the weight of the trains. This meant ordering new ones. Son of Beast was getting an upgrade, and a downgrade simultaneously. The upgrade used Gerstlauer trains that were used on the park's old wooden coaster Hurricane, which made the ride experience more comfortable. Lighter trains, though, meant the ride was going to go slightly slower due to physics. This in turn led to the removal of one of this ride's claim to fame, the only inverting wooden coaster. The slower trains couldn't consistently traverse the teardrop loop, ultimately leading to this element's demise. Luckily, the removal didn't get too much publicity, and generally didn't change the ride experience drastically, except of course for the lack of the inversion. Work would come into 2007, and Son of Beast would reopen for the year. Generally, people didn't notice the change. The lighter train supposedly made it better, but still, it was multitudes rougher than most wooden coasters. The ride experience was the same, less intense without the loop, but under the hood, Son of Beast was safe again. Meanwhile, Kings Island was still pissed off. RCCA had gone bankrupt in 2005, yet Kings Island was out for blood. RCCA's insurance company would secure an appeal to not pay Kings Island the $20.5 million, as RCCA's standard commercial liability insurance policy excluded the kind of problems Kings Island was facing. Kings Island would actually never get their money back. It turns out, Kings Island couldn't win this war. For a long time, it looked like the tides were reversed, and Kings Island was on the up and up again. But in the end, it truly was the biggest scam in roller coaster history. What seemed like a victory for Kings Island turned out to be a big waste of time and money, and luckily, they wouldn't have to sink much more into the ride for much longer. The year was 2009. Up was released in theaters to critical acclaim. Iowa becomes the first state to call out and strike down the unconstitutional same-sex marriage laws, and people mourn the death of MJ. And Son of Beast would close forever. In late July of 2009, a woman reported that she busted a blood vessel in her brain after riding Son of Beast. Kings Island had no known report of somebody seeking medical attention afterward, but nevertheless, Kings Island closed Son of Beast to get inspected by the Ohio Department of Agriculture one last time. The inspection reports came back to Kings Island 6 weeks after, with the news that it was completely fine. Kings Island, though, stated that it was unclear when they would reopen. Son of Beast would never reopen. But Kings Island didn't say it. All of the negative press, issues with the ride, and low public reception kept piling up on Son of Beast, and Kings Island decided it wasn't worth to run anymore. Son of Beast had a quiet death. First, references to the ride anywhere in the park were removed, and the iconic entrance sign, signs on the map, and any other reference in advertising were all completely wiped. While all of this sweeping under the rug was happening, Son of Beast sat dormant, in a decaying state, not operating. Parts of the queue were slowly removed, and in 2010, the station was used for Wolfpack. When asked about the standing but not operating Son of Beast, Kings Island said that they were still evaluating what to do with the ride that just never seemed to work. But in 2012, they had their answer. The Son of Beast would be gutted and never heard from again. Demolition began in September of that year. Sections of the ride would be demolished, knocked down, and pulled down piece by piece, clearing that 12-acre plot of land for anyone's guess what would happen. We wouldn't need to wait very long, though. Banshee at Kings Island is the current tenant of the Son of Beast plot of land. Announced in 2013, 1 year after the demolition of Son of Beast, Banshee would be the world's longest inverted coaster produced by Bollinger and Mabillard. B&M honored Son of Beast the best way they could, by promising to make an amazing ride, and B&M did just that. Still, the world's longest invert, Banshee thrills guests today, and in the queue has an eternal flame burning for the Son of Beast. What turned from an outlandish idea to an overbearing reality, Son of Beast was planned to be great, but with poor construction and poor execution all the way through. It shows how such a great plan can be sidetracked if one step of the process is done the easy way, not the right way. RCCA's cost-cutting, underbidding, and overall shadiness led to large birth defects on Son of Beast, with ill intent to scam Kings Island out of their money. And they did. They took $20.5 million from Kings Island, and survived long enough to see the profit. Kings Island had to deal with the repercussions. The headache of creation RCCA created caused misery for Kings Island and unintentional pain and heartache for those who were hurt. RCCA never had the intention to hurt people, but roller coasters need to be created with safety being the forefront thought when building, and RCCA prioritized money over safety. Son of Beast thrilled millions for the time it was open, and I think it's safe to say that no father should ever have to outlive his son.